Hey, what's going on there, folks? Welcome back. It is the Earthmaster here on this end of the weekend. Monday, tomorrow. Today, right now, though, October 8th, 2023. It's about 11 p.m. here, California time. And latest activity looks like a 2.9 here around the Mediterranean. Seeing mostly quiet conditions here over the past 24 hours. That could be changing. Looking at the large-scale model here of the Earth, seeing quite a bit of returning of the earthquake activity here in the Izu Islands. That swarm remained quiet for just a short period of time, and as you can see here, it all ramped up once again here about 1 o'clock my time with a 4.7, and it just ramped up since then. Quite a few 4s and 5s, although the latest, it looks like it was about an hour and a half period of some intense moderate earthquake activity. You know, moderate, if you want to call these large, small, it's all subjective, right? But these 5s here I would call moderate. Lasted for about an hour or two, and then they just magically stopped. Although right now we're getting some earthquake activity up here across the Kuril-Kamchatka. Now, if you've been keeping track of this earthquake swarm here that we've been seeing in the Izu Trench, separately, during this swarm, we've seen a little swarming up here across the Kuril-Kamchatka. I still think this area is majorly primed for a mega quake. Far as history tells us, it's a little bit overdue here. Not necessarily along this segment, because that Japan Trench obviously produced a 9-pointer back in 2011. But specifically up here across the Kuril-Kamchatka, I believe is overdue. And that's where we're seeing a 5.3 in the last hour. Deep earthquake here, 174 kilometers deep. Obviously, deeper movement quakes further add strain up at the surface levels, or at least in the locked area. Continuing to watch that. Kuril-Kamchatka has some major potential there to see some major earthquake activity. You know what else kicked up around the same time as the Izu Trench? Hawaii. Kilauea volcano. So we did see activity ramp up here around 1 o'clock, a little bit this morning, specifically in this area. I find it odd that these two are in sequence here with one another, but you have to look on a large scale, right? What's going on here beneath the lithosphere? We're kind of just floating along here, right, if you really think about it. So I think there's a little bit of squeezing going on here. I'm trying to picture it in my mind, but it's hard to explain it as a, this type of scenario. But been watching these areas, the Izu Trench and the Hawaii area, kick off at the same time. Let's go ahead and look at the Kilauea volcano real quick and see what we got. The latest earthquake shows at about 8 o'clock. So this activity has kind of continued beyond the Izu Trench activity, which halted around 2 o'clock or so, about 2:30. The last one, 1.7, pretty shallow. Some of these earthquakes are getting shallower towards the surface levels, but not so much around the crater area, around the lava lake, mainly south here of that area. So we could see reactivation of some older fissures out here, I guess. Older eruption spots, older vents. It hasn't always been up here at the lava lake area. Let me double check and see what the latest information statement here from the USGS has to say. This was put out today. Currently not erupting. The area just south of Kilauea Summit showing signs of unrest. Currently no unusual activity across the rift zones. The inflation data still remains elevated at its highest level in over 5 years and has nearly returned to the level seen just before the last eruption earlier back in September of this year. Most of these earthquakes from the seismic swarm south of the caldera are at depths of around 2.5 to 3.5 kilometers. This trend of seismic activity parallels, but is slightly south of the December 1974 eruption vents. So just kind of watching this. There's no real clear indicator of what's going to happen. Let's go ahead and check out the tilt meters here across the Kilauea volcano. Obviously, there's some magma movement going on below, right? That's the reason for the earthquake activity, the reason for the swarms, the reason for tilt meters showing inflation. Here is the last 2 days of activity. We did see a little decline here. This was yesterday. We kind of leveled off during that period of when the earthquake activity halted. Right, we seen roughly at the same time as Izu Trench, when that earthquake activity halted yesterday. You know, it was kind of quiet the majority of the day yesterday. Same with the Kilauea volcano. So we've seen deflation, but now we got the earthquake activity occurring back at the Kilauea volcano. Subsequently, the same time as the Izu Trench, and inflation. So things are, I think things are getting busy down below the surface here in terms of magma movement as a whole, and what's going on here in certain areas around this hot spot, the Hawaiian Islands. The latest earthquake activity does show quite a bit of movement here across the Kilauea volcano. All these are earthquakes. USGS doing a pretty good job of reporting the majority of them. Far as let's see, I don't think we're going to see anything right now out there. You never know. Sometimes we see hot spots out there, but looks generally quiet. Not a whole lot of lighting up in terms of the crater area. So everything's still below the surface for now, but we're continuing to watch that. Inflation obviously means bulging, a lot of underground movement. It's possible we could see a new area of eruption around the Kilauea volcano. You know, it's been mainly confined up here to the lava lake area. It's been filling that thing up like crazy for the past year or so, past 2 years. But we could see things spark up elsewhere. It just all depends on what Kilauea volcano wants to do. And for now, we're just going to continue to watch that and monitor that. Mauna Loa tilt meters here. Separate volcano. Showing, well, this one looks a little odd. Let me see what we got here. I'm not for sure what these differences here. I'm not really seeing any clear trend of any major uptick in inflation, which is a good sign. But for now, Kilauea volcano is the active region that we're watching. So Izu Trench, Kurokamachaca Trench, all showing elevated activity here tonight. Minimal movement across, well, let's see here. You know, last time we've seen all this earthquake activity like this, we had those big earthquakes down here in Papua New Guinea and also over in western Afghanistan. I don't think that's going to mimic that, but you never know. We could see some further activity down here across Papua New Guinea. The latest activity of 4.6 Solomon Islands. We did see a 5.9 earthquake earlier this morning as well, just up north here of the Bismarck Sea. 10 kilometers deep, so still some strain in this area. Not so much down here across the Tonga area. 4.6 earlier this afternoon. Almost 500 kilometers deep there. Get to New Zealand here in a second. I'm saving that for last. Up into the northern areas of Alaska. Slight activity here across the Aleutian Trench. Mainly small microquake activity. And up here in Seattle, well, outside of Seattle, 4.3. 57 kilometers deep. Now, I think you guys know at that depth, that is associated with the Cascadia subduction zone. This is not a surface earthquake activity. I don't think it's associated with these with these fault systems here. This is more down into the areas and below the tremor area, below where the Cascadia tremor takes place. Let me show you guys here real quick. Cascadia tremor. This is just a general view here showing the tremor amount. Now, if you look here down in Oregon, outside of Medford, this activity is not occurring at the surface. These red dots are tremors, and that is occurring underneath this region into the Cascadia subduction zone at 35 to 45 kilometers deep. And that earthquake today up in Washington occurring below that, further on the map here, about almost 60 kilometers deep here. So occasionally we do see some deeper movement quakes in the area of the deeper regions of the Cascadia. I'm not for sure if they've seen much tremor up there outside of this area. Let me check this here. We'll go back since about August or so. See what we got up there around Seattle. Here, see, here's a tremor that's occurring. This is a little bit more left on the map, so that means a little bit further upstream. The Cascadia, or the Cascadia subduction zone itself, sits right offshore here in this red line. This is where the Juan de Fuca plate as a whole is being pushed underneath the North American plate here to the east. This is North American plate, Juan de Fuca plate, Cascadia megathrust subduction zone. You can see on the oceanic floor, oceanic crust, the subduction level itself. And there's deeper regions here. There's the obviously the volcanoes created from the subduction zone. You find that across many subduction zones, the Cascade volcanoes, up into Vancouver and up in the Canada area as well. So this earthquake occurring a little bit deeper below the tremor line. What that means? Well, it just happens to mean there was enough stress down there to produce this size of an earthquake. Most of the time, these tremors consist of magnitudes. Well, let's bring this down just a little bit. We'll just cover this. M energy release in the, if you want to consider these earthquakes, they're very small, 1.1, 0.9, that type of M energy release. These are not sudden jolts of earthquakes. These are basically vibrations between the two plates here, the Juan de Fuca plate and the North American plate, just sliding past each other. In this case, it's I think it's building up further strain out here across the area. Not really seeing too much earthquake activity here across this area for now, as far as the upper regions of the Cascadia go. That 4.3, let's see, I appreciate the comments there that the folks reported feeling it. This looks like it occurred on a dipping type fault. The fault plane solution here kind of shows that. Really no wording here from the USGS or any type of aftershock forecast because of the depth there. Most of the time these little yeah, they're kind of a little earthquake down there. The deeper regions don't have aftershock, so hopefully it's not a foreshock to something much bigger occurring on the Cascadia. But it did shake things up out there a little bit across Washington. Mostly light to some moderate shaking being reported by quite a few folks out there. And Did You Feel It responses show quite a few folks out there in the area of Washington feeling some shaking earlier. So kind of continue to watch that. Rest of the West Coast out here, not a whole lot going on through Northern California. Still seeing, well, it looks like this came to a halt earlier this afternoon. A little separate swarm out here around Middleton, California. This area has seen some swarming as well a few days ago. Now, this is not associated with what's going on up here across the Cobb Mountain area. This is the Calpine hydrothermal operations out there, and a lot of folks don't know about it. A lot of folks think it's, there's obviously the Clear Lake volcanic field sits out here, but us genius humans have found a way to create energy, yes, and they do it, at least in this area, by injecting raw sewage into the heated surface below to create some type of dry steam. In turn, powers quite a few homes out here in the Bay Area. It's an interesting process. If you get a chance, check it out. These are the facilities that sit out here. It's a rather gross process. If you think about it, they really call it green, so to speak. But yeah, there's numerous plants out here. Some of these are more active than others. It looks like generally around this region here today, there's quite a bit going on. Now, I'm sure the folks up there know about it. They obviously know that this is earthquake activity. They try to keep, I mean, their process involves earthquake activity, but they try to keep these quakes at low key, because you start getting some bigger earthquakes up here, then you talk about damages and lawsuits and whatnot. So the whole process here is basically human caused due to the processes involved in this creating energy stuff. Look it up, Calpine Hydrothermal Energy Solutions. Interesting little deal here. All right, back out of here. Let's see what else we got here. Not a whole lot going on through the San Francisco Bay, Southern California. Awfully quiet, goodness. Only a handful of smaller quakes out there today. Yellowstone National Park, nothing going on, but I do want to double check. I'm sure we'll see that 4.3 showing up here. Maybe. Maybe not. It was a deeper earthquake, so some of these graphs here I'm missing. I'm not for sure what's going on. I think, well, it's coming up on that 24-hour period. It doesn't look like that 4.3 showed up too much. Maybe right here's what I'm guessing. Well, maybe right here. One of these. But for the most part, earthquake activity is non-existent up here across Yellowstone National Park for now. Eastern portion of the country, nothing major to chat about. A little bit of swarming up here outside of the Cherokee area of Oklahoma, near Nash, it looks like. Let's see what we got out there. I don't know if there's any oil fields out here or not. Maybe that just answered my question. There's a few of them out here, these little checkered boxes. So some of those are getting hit today with some earthquakes. Down across the Caribbean plate, generally light earthquake activity. South America region showing a handful of earthquakes out here in the last 24. Looks like some slight uptick specifically along the Peru-Chile Trench here. Continue to watch that. Look at the earthquake 3D globe. Looks like we did have some earthquake activity down in the Baja California region. Nothing really shown up here through the USGS model, though. Deeper activity here across Indonesia, looks like. A couple deeper quakes. 4.2 off the coast of Sumatra. I think USGS, well, no, they're not. Not reporting that. All right, New Zealand. New Zealand looks like a handful of smaller quakes down there, 3.4, 3.1. Let me check out the GeoNet servers real quick, and then I kind of want to go over an article here that Timothy sent me earlier. I'm sure he may have posted that on the chat here as well. 2.3. This looks like Taupo supervolcano area. 2.5 as well. Aside from that, not a whole lot of movement going on. Let's see what we got here for the volcano drums. Bingo! I was right. Right around the Taupo supervolcano. The most distinct looking signatures here compared to everyone else. A little bit of earthquake activity. Definitely not any swarming going on there. No unusual activity, right, for now. All right, New Zealand. There was a little article put out here from the... This is called stuff.co.New Zealand, but originally coming off of science.org. So this is not a fake website. It's not a fake article, because obviously the science.org website put this out. It looks as though... Let's see, is this the right one? Let me see here real quick. Yeah, this is it. This was put out... looks a little different. Not for sure when this was put out. This one shows maybe August of this year. But if you go back here to the this website called stuff.co.New Zealand, there's a little article here put out about a buried reservoir found off New Zealand coast where there's a 1 in 4 chance of a megaquake. Now, I think we all know what's out there. If you don't, well, that's called the Hikurangi Subduction Zone. That does sit just off the coast here, the east coast of the North Island area, and kind of down here as well, off the north coast, northeastern coast here of South Island, New Zealand. This is the plate boundary. You can see it here on the oceanic crust, very similar to what you've seen up along the Cascadia subduction zone, but not quite as a lengthy subduction zone, but very capable of producing some large damaging earthquakes. We're talking up to about a magnitude 9, and a little uncertainty on to when the last one was. I pulled up the last 7.0 and above earthquakes here, since at least records been kept with the USGS. Now, whether they go back farther with the GeoNet servers, I don't know, but really, New Zealand sits along a major plate boundary that does see some large damaging earthquakes. That's a fact, and I think everyone in the area knows it. 7.8 2016, right? That was a big one. 7.0 2010, 1929. Big earthquakes can take place out here across this area of the plate boundary, but we're not, I mean, these are big, but nothing compared to the mega quake potential that the Hikurangi is capable of. I was just looking here, you know, because I still think New Zealand needs to catch up somewhat in terms of the plate adjustment out here. A lot of older quakes out here in the area of North Island, New Zealand, early 1940s or so. There's that 7.7 back in 1947. A lot of older movement. So this area definitely primed, I think, for some larger scale activity. Down here across South Island, 1929, of course, Christchurch earthquake, 2016, 1929, 2010. The Alpine Fault area is lacking movement here. That's similar to the California area, but a little bit smaller type of setup. And there's so many areas, if you really think about it, that are well overdue, right? We've been living in some quiet times, geologically speaking, you know, as far as earthquakes and major volcanoes. But that's not always going to be the story. So New Zealand's going to, you know, New Zealand's definitely sitting up on the list here for some potential larger scale activity. Anyway, this, I got off track here, but this article spoke about a body of water underneath the bed of the ocean in the Hikurangi subduction zone, where experts say there is a 26% chance of a megaquake registering about a 9.0 in the next 50 years. It's an interesting article. If you want to check it out, I will leave a link to this article here. Here's a little view of where the Hikurangi subduction zone areas are. That's a whole area, but they have, looks like a little bit separate names for them. Alpine Fault here across that plate boundary, stretching into South Island. Big time possibility of some mega quake activity, but this article is worth the read if you get a chance on how, for the most part, how this water accumulated down below, and what they believe could produce a big tsunami out here. This is from that website as well. Of course, the red being some higher potential tsunami heights. And they're saying that it could be up around 65-foot waves. So 65 feet high tsunami waves stretching across the North Island, New Zealand area, which is a pretty big deal, I think. Right? I wouldn't want to see a 65-foot wave coming at me. And of course, potentially we could see that spread across other areas. But this is just a time frame on a 9.0 or 8.9 scenario. "20 meters, 65 feet, 7.4 inches to be exact." That's pretty a pretty large tsunami. So it's just worth, you know, it's worth watching down here in this area right now. It's good, it's quiet, but like many other subduction zones and very dangerous areas. San Andreas Fault, very quiet. So much is overdue if you really think about it, that any of this could go at any time. You know, percentages are just that. They're just percentages. And it could happen tonight, could happen tomorrow, could happen in the next couple years. Best thing to do, though, is not wait for it to happen. Always got to make sure you have a plan, earthquake plan, an escape route. I'm not for sure what the population density is out here across New Zealand. I'm sure it's I'm sure they got some big towns out here. This one here looks pretty big. Is it a football field out there? Or a track? Maybe a track. But yeah, I mean, just got to be prepared. No matter where you're at here on this planet, there's always a potential for natural disasters. And right now we're just in somewhat elevated activity out here. I'm wanting to see what all this is about. I'm waiting. I mean, this earthquake swarm is just not happening for no reason. There's got to be a big time reason behind this, and I think it's got to do with the major stress out here against this western areas of the Pacific Plate. Coming up on 86 earthquakes here in the last week of moderate to large magnitudes. We did see 3 6s, quite a few 5s and 4s, and I'm sure hundreds maybe of 3s and 2s, but not showing it here on this map. So whether this is leading up to a big mega quake somewhere, it remains to be seen. You know, that's 99% certain now that this is all stress related, not anything to do with volcanic activity. But you never know, all this movement could stir things up here across the volcano islands. Just never know. But generally speaking, this is all stress out here across the area, Western Pacific Plate. All right, what else we got here? We got a couple more earthquakes keying up here across the Cobb Mountain area and down here into the Middleton area. Yeah, this one coming in just within the last few minutes or so. It's interesting that these specific areas are getting hit. Plate boundary remains pretty quiet, but it's the coast range here just showing some activity. All right, let's check out space weather, see what we got going on here real quick. Coming back, it looks like from a C flare right now, a little small, tiny C flare. C4.4, looks like. Current rays are at C1.2. And let's see where that's coming off of. Kind of hard to tell. Maybe maybe one of these far side sunspots. I'm thinking right around here, this active region. That's about the only region of interest out here. Every single one of these other sunspots look like they are just completely, well, take that back here. Look at this area. This is kind of ramping up here quite nicely. This was not, look at earlier, this was earlier this morning, 3460. And look at it now, peppered with quite a bit of independent cores here within the sunspot area. This one's definitely showing some rapid growth, which I like. Continue to watch that. That could be a threat here for some solar flares here in the coming hours and days if it continues to keep that up. Look at the UV filter array here. Does show quite a bit of magnetic arching and magnetic lines here all over the place. Continue to watch that. I think that's that one, 3460, and this area around here, which is now scooting off the western limb, is about the only areas to watch far as solar flare activity goes. Let's see what we got here for solar flare threat. 95% chance for a C flare, M flare at 35, X flare somewhat elevated, around 5% chance or so. 3460 does harbor a beta gamma class. Goodness, all right. Getting up there, making its presence known here on the sun. Not a whole lot of aurora forecast for now. Things are pretty quiet. We'll see if we can't get that to change here soon in the coming week with some active regions there. All right, Storm Prediction Center, very minimal over the next couple days. Not a whole lot of severe weather threat. I'm hoping today here in California was our last hot day. And it was hot. It was about 95 degrees today here in Northern California, just outside of Chico, California, where I live in the Sacramento Valley. I'm done. I am completely done with summer. It looks like we do have some colder temperatures coming in here, along with some rainfall chances. But notice that they pretty much skipped the valley. But it looks like we do have at least somewhat of a little pattern change for the West Coast. Let's check out the long-term models. Right now, areas across the east are experiencing some rather chilly fall-like temperatures, right? Maybe a little frost on the pumpkin out there. Certain areas in the morning. Here's a high-pressure system that's been creating some heat out here across the West Coast that is heading up north. You guys can have it up there in Canada. Here in California, Northern California, Pacific Northwest, showers and cooler temperatures. That is expected for the majority of this coming week as a deepening trough here sets itself up here and pretty much joins hands here with the this low pressure out in the East Coast, adding for a rather cool lower 48 out here. Some lower pressure or some cooler temperatures definitely heading up into the Pacific Northwest and my area, Northern California. Again, that's for the majority of the week. And it looks as though towards the weekend, a new area of low pressure out here across California trying to bump in there. And look at the high pressure. Zoop! Wants to squeeze right in there and just bring a taste of summer back for the areas of the Four Corners. I hope that doesn't include Northern California, but we'll see how that plays out. Again, that's a ways out. Definitely a ways out. And unfortunately, we'll have to see here. October 17th here is, I believe that's the day for the solar eclipse. Now, I'm watching this pretty closely because if it's going to be cloudy and rainy, I am not going to be making the drive over to Nevada to film anything. I am planning on live streaming this event, the annular eclipse, the Ring of Fire, so to speak, Winnemucca area. But I'm kind of keeping an eye on the area right now as far as any cloud cover, any changes going on. But we'll chat about that eclipse a little bit later on. For now, though, we'll just enjoy some cooler temperatures out here in Northern California. Love it. Good riddance to summer. National Hurricane Center, anything major going on out here? We got Lydia, Max. Nothing huge. Definitely nothing huge out there. The Atlantic. Wow. Nothing. Not a whole lot going on. All right, folks. I am going to jump off here. And again, with this elevated earthquake activity, who knows where it's going to go. The majority of the activity has been confined here. Kuril-Kamchatka Trench, Izu Trench. How much more the Kuril-Kamchatka can take before a mega quake kicks up, I don't know. All I know is this area, I've been saying it since the first of the year, this area is definitely ripe for some mega quake potential. So we'll keep an eye on that area. And New Zealand, you know, obviously it's in a hazard zone as well, and it's just many areas well overdue. Best thing to do, like I say, just stay safe, be prepared. Have an earthquake plan. Stock up. If you can, you know, keep a little emergency supply on hand and some totes. Best thing to do, I think. All right, guys, coming up on 11:30 at night, my time, well past my bedtime. In fact, if I had it my way, it's 2 hours past my bedtime, but all right, tomorrow's Monday. Have a good day. Stay safe. We'll catch you guys back out here tomorrow morning. Have a good one.